Hey guys, my name is Matsumo, and today the Battlefield 1 beta has finally arrived, and the first thing that I had to try out was riding around on horses. Now, originally, my biggest concern with the horses was that they were going to be a bit of a gimmick. Yeah, they might sound cool conceptually, but in practice, I imagined that they might be a fun way to get from point A to point B, but you definitely wouldn't want to ride around on these things consistently going for kills. Those concerns were entirely unfounded. The horse is a very powerful tool in the right hands. It may require a little bit more skill and knowledge of when to charge on in and when to retreat, but once you get a basic grasp of the flow of the battle and you start to understand how this vehicle performs, it is a blast charging in and slashing everyone's faces off and getting multi-kills left and right. The one thing I quickly realized though about this vehicle is that you want to take advantage of its speed and stay on the move. It seemed like every time I would slow down to take a shot with its primary weapon, which is a sniper rifle, that's when I would get counter-sniped. If I missed the first roadkill on someone and would slow down to go for another pass on them, that's when they would take me out no problem. And so if you've been having a hard time riding around on horses because you just keep dying, my main recommendation is to ignore your bolt-action rifle. Just don't even use it, get comfortable with the controls, and ride around at top speed trying to go for roadkills and slash at the enemy. That, I think, is really the main way that you want to play as this vehicle. Think of it more as a hit and run. Even if you miss the roadkill, even if you miss the slash, just kind of bob and weave and go for a repeat, let the enemy forget about you, and as soon as they forget about you, that's when you charge on in and chop their head off. One critique I have for it though is I'm not a fan of the way they handled the bolt-action rifle. Right now I find that there is very little reason to use this because not only does it leave you vulnerable like we mentioned before, but it's also very inconsistent. I don't like random bullet deviation. I don't like when I don't have control over my weapon, and that's basically the epitome of this bolt-action rifle when you are riding on horseback. You guys will notice that you can't aim down sight, and that means that every time that you squeeze a trigger, your reticle is very large. This means that if you're trying to take someone out at long range, or even someone who's directly in front of you, it really is the flip of the coin if you're going to be able to take them out. And so not only is it challenging just to line up the shot because the horse is doing its own thing, it's going to move really sporadically compared to a normal soldier's movement, you're also on the move, the enemy's on the move, but now also you have to take into consideration this really excessive bullet deviation. I don't like that. I know that sniping on a horse would be very, very difficult in a real life situation, but from a gameplay and a fun standpoint, I like to be able to be in control of my character. I like to be in control of my weapon, and to have this really excessive flip of the coin if you're going to be able to get a kill on someone is something that rubs me the wrong way. And while it's not a deal breaker because I love playing as a cavalry unit, I just don't like the way they balance that out. And so it makes me interested to see how customization is going to work when the game goes live. I'm imagining you're going to be able to customize your loadout when you are playing on the horse. Will you be able to have a loadout that allows you to aim down sight and have that accuracy? You may not be as nimble, maybe it has some downsides to it, but that would be a really cool way at balancing out, or at least giving some options. So maybe one horse rider is really good at being fast and getting into the enemy and slashing their faces off, and the other one is more methodical and you're trying to take someone out at long range while on horseback. That could be really interesting, but right now I'm not 100% sold on this excessive amount of random bullet deviation. One thing I have to commend DICE on though is the crazy amount of variety. One concern I've been hearing a lot from players is, will Battlefield 1 be here to stay? Is it here to last, or is it just going to wither away and die like something like Star Wars Battlefront or Battlefield Hardline? They may have been decent games, but they did not have the staying power that a lot of people were hoping for. Well, the variety is definitely going to help with that. Each class, each vehicle within the subsection of those classes plays completely differently. A tank has a different play style than a horse. A horse is going to play completely differently than a biplane. A biplane is going to play differently than a bomber, and then of course you have all the different classes on the ground running around. It's this variety that I think is really going to assist with that longevity. I think this is the reason why I was able to put 40 hours into the closed alpha when we were only playing on one map, and the reason why I'm excited to continue to play this on the new one. And while 30, 40, 50 hours is kind of a drop in the bucket for a main Battlefield game, the simple fact that this is just the closed alpha and the beta so far, I think speaks volumes for just the variety and the different play styles and how it just makes the game a hell of a lot more interesting. That does not mean that there isn't any problems here. There are some balancing issues that we might get into in a future video, But for all the people that are concerned, I highly recommend that you download Battlefield 1, give it a whirl, because I think you're going to understand that yes, this has a lot of staying power, and the amount of variety in the vehicles and the classes is going to be a main driving force. One thing I do recommend, though, when you start the beta is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of all the classes, and of course take advantage of those strengths and avoid the weaknesses at all costs. Assault is not something you're going to want to use at a distance. You always want to close the gap, because as soon as things go to medium to long range, you're at a massive disadvantage. Same is true for Scout. You want to go for long range, anything up close is when you're really going to struggle. DICE went for a severe rock, paper, scissors balance when it comes to classes, and while there's a little bit of wiggle room here and there, if you are trying to use your class inappropriately and you're not in the right situation for the weapon that you're using, you're going to have a hard time. On top of that, if you're playing as Assault, do your best to unlock the anti-tank weapon. Right now, if you haven't noticed from the gameplay, tanks are disgustingly powerful right now because no one has really the best means of taking care of them, which is this anti-tank rifle. And so as soon as you unlock it, which is going to take a while, I don't understand why DICE decided to put one of the best anti-tank weapons in the game behind such a long progression, but once you do unlock it, do your part and go for tanks as often as you possibly can. It does a lot of damage. Aim for the weak spots if possible. The back of the light tank is very vulnerable. You're able to disable it, which leaves it, of course, exposed to anyone to kind of mosey on up and take it out. Do your part, because right now tanks are really powerful, borderline overpowered, but as soon as people will start to unlock this, they become way less of a menace and much more manageable. But overall, I am really enjoying the Battlefield 1 open beta. I did not think I was going to enjoy horse combat as much as I am right now, but I can see myself and others really dedicating themselves to mastering this vehicle. It's got some problems, I have some issues with it, but in general, it is an absolute blast to ride this thing into combats. But yeah, guys, that has been it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Give me your thoughts on the open beta so far. Have you been impressed? Have you been disappointed? Is there something that you love? Is there something that you absolutely hate? Let me know down below. But yeah, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.